Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Namaskar dear students, I am Dr. Himanshu Patel working as an assistant professor in School of Computer Science of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, and I am your instructor for this module. I welcome you all on the course on cross-platform application development using Flutter. In today's session, we are going to discuss very important topic, how to getting start with Flutter. So let's begin. So in today's session, we will learn what are the hardware and software requirement to install Flutter. We will then learn how to actually install Flutter step by step, and we will also set up Android development and target Android device. Initially, we will start with mobile application development using Flutter on Windows platform. Then we will develop apps for web, desktop and iOS. Initially, we begin with mobile applications development using Windows platform. Once Flutter is installed, we need to check whether it is properly installed or not. So finally, we will check our development setup so that we can make ensure that everything is okay. And finally, we will learn how to create your first Flutter app. Let us begin with hardware and software requirement. You can see on the screen hardware requirements for installing Flutter. We need 64-bit architecture CPU with minimum 4 cores and maximum 8 cores. Minimum RAM required is 8 GB and recommended is 16 GB. Display resolution required minimum is 1316 by 768 and recommended is Full HD, that is 920 by 1080. The free space or disk space required to install Flutter is minimum 11 GB and recommended is 60 GB. If we talk about graphics, there are no specific requirement, but a GPU or graphics processing unit helps with emulator performance. If graphics card is installed on your computer, then it is good. Then we have some software requirements. So initially we start with Windows platform. We must have Windows 10 and above with PowerShell version 5.0 or newer. We require Git for Windows. You can download Git. Then we require Flutter SDK. You can also download Flutter SDK from its site. Then we require Android Studio for Android development, which includes Android SDK, AVD Manager, etc. Then Visual Studio 2022 is required for Windows desktop application. Remember, Visual Studio Code and Visual Code is a two different software or IDEs. For Windows desktop application development, we require Visual Studio 2022, and for other applications we require Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code is a lightweight IDE that supports Flutter extension so that you can write Flutter app directly inside Visual Studio Code. And for iOS development, we must have Mac operating system. Windows is not supported. For iOS development, we must have Mac OS. And finally, for web development, only thing required is a browser, which is either Chrome or Edge. These two browsers are recommended for Flutter application testing. So these are the software and hardware requirements to install Flutter. Now, how to start building Flutter Android app on Windows? Initially, we will start with Android apps on Windows. The very first step is to download and install development tools like Git and Android Studio. So you can see on the screen, the first step is download and install development tools. Once it is downloaded and installed, we can configure a text editor or IDE, which is Visual Studio Code or Android Studio. After that, we can install the Flutter SDK. And once it is installed, we must add Flutter installation to system path so that it can be accessed from anywhere. Then we have to configure Android development. That means we have to create emulator using AVD manager, and once that emulator is running, we can check our app on emulator. And finally, we will check whether our development setup is okay or not using special command called Flutter Doctor. So these are the steps to start building Flutter Android apps on Windows. Now let us get installation demonstration step by step so that you can understand how to actually install Flutter on your system. So let us begin with installation. Type flutter.dev to open Flutter development homepage. Then click on get started. So here first it will ask you to choose your development platform to get started. So we initially start building apps on Windows platform. So we have to click on Windows, then choose Android, and then we have to download Git for Windows. This is the site for downloading Git. Then you have to click on download button and it will ask you to save exe file that you can save on your computer, and once that download is finished, you can run that file by double clicking on it to install Git on your system. So here I open this Git development exe file. Now double click on that. It will launch installation wizard. Click next. It will show you paths. Click next. If it is already installed, then yes, click on next. Again, you have to click next. Here for every option you have to click on next, that you can see on the screen. Again, click next, click next. So for every option we have to use default option. Just click on next every time. Now once that all options are chosen, it will start installing your Git setup. So now press install button. It will install Git 2.5 on your computer. So currently it is installed in C program files. Once that is finished, we have to download Android Studio. Now click finish. Next, we will install Android Studio on our computer, which is the IDE to develop mobile apps using Java or Kotlin as a language. So you have to download the latest version of Android Studio. So it will open developer.android.com. Click on download button. Check this checkbox and download Android Studio. Again, it will download exe file on your computer. Now Android Studio is a huge file, so it will take some time to download the file itself. The progress you can see in the recent download history. So once that download is finished, we can start install Android Studio. So now you can see on the screen, it is almost 1.4 GB. So it takes some time to download this file. And once it is finished or done, we can open that file from download folder. So now it is downloaded. Double click on that. It will extract that file and start installation wizard. Click on next. Again click on next. This is path where your Android Studio is installed. You can change that path using browse button. Click on next. Now it will start installing Android Studio. You can see the details by clicking on show details. It takes some time to install entire Android Studio. So have a patience. Once it is finished, you can click next. Now it will ask you to whether you want to start Android Studio. So click on finish. Here you can select either don't send or send usage. Now here it again welcome you for setup wizard, which validate your current installation. Type of setup is standard. Click on finish. So it will download any missing component or SDK. So you can also see the detail here. So it shows that it is preparing install Android emulator. Now once that is finished, you have to click on finish. So it may take some time. So click on finish. Now it opens welcome to Android Studio dialog box. Now close this window. Next we install Visual Studio Code with Flutter extension. You can see the URL to download Visual Studio Code. Click on download. It will ask you to save exe file. My file is currently downloading. Once that download is finished, we can install Visual Studio Code by double clicking on it. It will open setup wizard. You have to agree, then click next. So it will install Visual Studio Code on your computer. So now Visual Studio Code is installed. Click on finish. Next, we must install Flutter extension for Visual Studio Code. So click on this button. Now when you click on this install button, it will open Visual Studio and show Flutter extension. So if it is install, then it shows uninstall button, and if it is uninstall, then it shows install button. So this is how we can install Flutter extension. To download and install Flutter, we must open Flutter Windows SDK, save on your computer. It will download Flutter Windows SDK, which is of size 1.6 GB approximately. So it takes some time to download this Flutter SDK for Windows. Now extract these. So it will create that folder where it is downloaded. So again it takes some time to extract all the files inside these SDK. Once that is finished, you can see that there is a Flutter folder inside this extracted folder. So go to C drive, users, username, and create one folder called dev. So this is a path where we actually store our SDK. So open that folder, cut that folder and put inside users, username and dev folder that we have created. So paste over here. Now we do not require these Flutter Windows 3.2 stable folder, but Flutter. So open that folder, cut this Flutter, paste outside and delete that folder. So now our path is C user, username, dev and Flutter. So this is a path where our Flutter SDK is installed. Now we must add that into environment variable. Search for environment variable, edit environment variable, again press environment variable, select system variable inside path and click new to add Flutter SDK path inside path variable. So click on new and write down these code, these line in path variable and press OK. So now we can access Flutter SDK from anywhere within our system. Now open Android Studio, click on Virtual Device Manager, click on plus button to create new device, select any of these. Here we are selecting Pixel 9 and click on next. You can also select any other. You can give your emulator name here. Then expand these for additional settings. So internal storage, expanded storage that you can change. Graphics acceleration must be hardware. If you have graphics card installed, you can also change this RAM. So change RAM to 4 GB and click finish. So it will create emulator with specified parameters. So here when you click on start button, it will start that emulator on your screen. So that emulator may take some time to start. So that emulator is starting and it will open home screen like your actual phone. So basically emulator is used to test Flutter apps for mobile applications. Now go to Windows PowerShell and type Flutter Doctor. So it will check whether Flutter is properly installed or not. So you can see the progress on the screen, and once that is finished, if any issue is found, it will be displayed on screen, and if there are no issue, it means that your Flutter is installed properly. So on screen you can see if it requires, it may download some packages, and then one by one it will test all the dependencies required for Flutter application development, and anything is missing, then it will ask you to rectify or correct the error. So it will check for dependencies. So it will take some time to complete this task. So it will check for all the details, and last it displays no issue found. It means our setup is properly installed. Now let us understand how to create your first app using Flutter SDK without using any IDE. So for that, open PowerShell. So here I have opened PowerShell. Now write Flutter, then space create and any app name that you want to give. So remember that app name should be without having any space. So you have to follow variable name conventions for creating app name. So command is Flutter create and name of app that you want to create. Here I have written test underscore app. So it will create test underscore app folder inside this path, that is C:/user/91903. Once you enter, it will create project test app. So it may take while to create your project. So once that project is created, it will show in last line that your application code is in test underscore app/lib/main.dart. Now we will understand this project in later part, but by writing this command, Flutter SDK will create one app or hello world app, you can say, or skeleton app for you with name whatever you have provided. In this case it is test underscore app. Now how to run this app? So let us understand. So next write cd and that folder name, and then write Flutter run and press enter. It will try to run this app. Now Flutter is a cross platform application development. So you can run your app either as a web application, mobile application, or as a Windows application. So right now we have three options: Windows, 1, 2 Chrome, and 3 Edge. You can also choose Q to quit. That means if you don't want to run your application, just quit by pressing Q. So here I press 1, so it will run it as a Windows application. So you can see building Windows application. So now you can see my application is running, and it has a functionality to increment this label by pressing plus button. So this is a basic app. Now close this app. Now again write Flutter run Now this time I press 2. So it will run it as a web application. So now it opens Google Chrome and run it as a web application. So now my application is running as a web applications with same functionality. Now close this. Now start emulator. We want to test it as a, so go to Android Studio, virtual AVD manager, select emulator that you want to run by pressing start button. So it will start emulator. We have tested our application on Windows and web. Now we want to test same application inside emulator. So again go to PowerShell, go to that folder, again run your app using Flutter run. But now this time our emulator is running. So it will directly launch that app inside emulator. If emulator is not running, then it will ask you for web or Windows. But now you can see on the screen that my app is running on emulator with same functionality. It has a title and plus button to increment counter. So friends, we have learned how to install Flutter, and we have also created one demo or skeleton application using Flutter SDK without using any IDE or integrated development environment. Now let us understand how to create your first Flutter app using Visual Studio Code. So first you must open Visual Studio Code and then you have to open command palette. Now how to open command palette? After opening Visual Studio, you have to press 3 keys simultaneously: Control, Shift and P. So by pressing Control, Shift and P, a command palette will open like this. If you follow mouse pointer, you can understand. Now here we have to type Flutter and colon. So it will show you different options. So first option shown is new project. So click on that or press enter, then it will ask you to choose project type. So there are project types, either application or web application or plugin or package or module. So there are different types of applications you can create inside Flutter. So here we want to create application. So I select application and press enter. It will open one dialog box where you have to select path for your project. So select path, type package name and then click select folder to create project in. Then it will ask you to enter project name. So in previous case our project name was test_app. Here I want to give name Flutter_application_1. So you have to type project name that you want to create and then press enter. So Visual Studio asks you two options: yes, I trust the author, or no, I don't trust the author. So we must select yes, I trust the author and then click on it. So Visual Studio Code will now create Flutter app with all necessaries file. So here you can see that project is created for me and here is a code for that project, and our main file is located inside this lib folder main.dart. We know that the code for writing Flutter app is using Dart language. So Visual Studio Code again create skeleton application for you. Now we want to run this app. So in case of command prompt, we type Flutter run after switching to our project folder. But here, if you want to run this app inside emulator, you can do so by press Ctrl Shift P and type Flutter launch emulator. So it will launch any emulator that you have created to install these apps. So select Flutter launch emulator and press enter. So it will open your emulator. So here you can see the list of emulators available. So its name is Pixel and it is Android emulator. Select that and it will launch that emulator that you can see over here. Now once that emulator is running, you can run your app. Now how to run your app? So here you can see different folders and files, from where you have to open main.dart. This is main.dart, which is inside lib folder. So make sure device or emulator is running and open this file that you can show here, main.dart, and then click on this start button. Or alternatively, you can click function key F1. So it will start launching these app on emulator. Next, it will ask you to select emulator. So here you can see again options, Chrome, Edge and emulator or Windows. So you can run on any of these, but we want to test inside emulator. So click on emulator and then press enter. You should see your Flutter app running in the emulator because we have selected to install app inside emulator. So you can see here my app with skeleton is running. So friends, this is how we have learned how to install Flutter and create our app using either at command prompt or PowerShell, using Flutter SDK or using Visual Studio Code IDE. Once that project is created or app is created for you, it has some project structure with some standard folders and files. So let us try to understand Flutter project structure. Here you can see that different folders are created by Visual Studio Code IDE. The first is a Dart_tool which contains Dart specific tooling data and it is automatically generated. You should not modify these. The second is .idea. So it stores configuration file for JetBrains IDE like Android Studio, and it also stores project settings, code style and workspace configuration. The third folder you can see is Android. It contains Android specific part of the Flutter app and it includes native Android code like Java or Kotlin, Gradle build scripts, and it also contains Android manifest.xml file. The next folder is build. So it again contains auto generated folder for output files which is called build artifacts. It can be deleted and regenerated by Flutter on build. Every time you build your project, it is regenerated by Flutter. The next folder is iOS. iOS folder stores iOS specific part of Flutter app which contains Swift or Objective-C code and Xcode project files. Next folder is lib folder, which is very important. It contains main.dart code for Flutter application. It contains one default file called main.dart which is entry point for our application and it is resides in a lib folder. The next folder is Linux folder which contains configuration and source code for Linux desktop builds if it is enabled. Next folder is Mac OS which contains configuration and source code for Mac OS desktop builds if it is enabled, and another folder called test is there which contains unit and widget test files. It helps in writing automated test for your app. Then it contains web folder which contains file for Flutter web support, and it includes one file called index.html and other web assets. The last folder is Windows folder which contains configuration and source code for Windows desktop builds. Now let us try to understand some important files inside this project structure. First file is git ignore which lists files or folders Git should ignore like build, Dart tools, etc. Then there is a metadata which contains metadata about the Flutter project like version, toolchain info. Again it is managed by Flutter, and there is a file called analysis_options.yaml which defines static code analysis rules like linting, and it is useful for enforcing code quality and style. Another important configuration file is pubspec.yml which defines your project name, description, dependencies, assets which may contain images or fonts, and SDK version. Then there is a pubspec.log file which is automatically generated when packages are installed and logs the version of dependencies used. Then there is a readme file at the end. You can see in project structure, here you can see. So it typically contains project description, setup instruction and usage, and it can be written in markdown or readme.md file. And there is a test_app.iml file which is IntelliJ or Android Studio project file, and it stores module configuration. So friends, the Flutter project structure is modular to support cross-platform development. You can see there is a folder for Android, iOS, web, Windows, Linux and Mac OS from single code base inside the lib folder. So single code is there and you can develop application using same code for either Windows or web or Macintosh or Android. So let us conclude. Flutter simplifies cross-platform app development using single code base. We have seen that a single skeleton app is running on Windows, web browser as well as in emulator. So we have tested same skeleton app on Windows, web and mobile. Setting up Flutter involves installing the necessary hardware, software and SDK. Visual Studio Code provides user-friendly interface for creating and running Flutter projects, and modular project structure supports Android, iOS, web and desktop platform. I hope you enjoy this session. Thank you and happy learning.
स्वाध्यायः